Hello, everybody, and welcome to True Crime Banter, the podcast aimed at bringing you your dose of murder relaxation. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. What are you saying over there?
I'm not saying anything.
Oh, I can never hear you, and I know you can't hear me either when that's playing.
It's a lot of guessing.
It's kind of like,
it's okay.
I don't know what the fuck is going on.
I know.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the True Crime Banter podcast.
I know, we just keep doing it and doing it.
And doing it okay.
Yeah, doing it mediocre.
Until eventually, maybe. I don't know. How are you doing today?
We're
fine. Filming kind of later today than we usually do.
What time is it? Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
Yep.
Today, I will be taking the lead.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be talking about a case that the names do not ring a bell at all to you.
I know, which is weird.
Jay Cook and Tanya Kylenborg.
Wow.
Yeah.
You would think I would remember that name.
Right, exactly. Now, this is a story that I was kind of telling you when I asked you if these sounded familiar. I was basically asking you if it sounded familiar.
Yeah.
But I was saying there's a part of this story that I'm like, how does this not ring a bell to me?
Okay.
I'm like, this is like a major thing that happened in the true crime world.
Weird. I feel like every now and then, one of us will find something like that.
Yeah, and I think there is a reason why, and I will go over it a little bit, obviously, but I was like, this is crazy, like, and it's local.
Oh, ish. Okay.
No,
okay.
It's pretty local. But before we do, you got a couple things you want to go over.
Yeah. Should we start with banter or shout outs? What do you think?
Shout out to the banter. Do the bit of banter first.
Okay. So this one, when we kind of first started doing the podcast thing, I kind of took over the whole Instagram thing, right? And it's just not my forte. I feel like I'm getting better at it.
Much better. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, much better than I was ever doing. So.
Yeah, but, I feel like if the roles were reversed and you had to take over Instagram, you would be on the same page. Where if you do anything and you kind of start, you just naturally are like, oh,
you
this seems to work. This doesn't seem to work.
It.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, anybody that knows me, this whole like technology thing is not, I don't know anything.
You're great at it though.
Well, it's work. I mean, when it's something you like doing,
Yeah, makes it a little easier to want to learn how to do it better.
So one of the first things I did was, instead of just adding a bunch of random people, which I did do later, and I still do now, is adding local police departments.
Okay.
Just to kind of see like
Stay
local
on top
things.
Of things.
Yeah. So I kind of started with like the western part, and I just did like Oregon, Washington. We're in Washington, California, and I kind of worked over whatever. So I kind of started like local too, though, not just Washington,
right,
but like
county-wise.
Yeah.
Or districts.
So I added Tacoma, and anybody from around here, Tacoma. We're like a little bit north of Seattle, so Tacoma's like an hour from us.
Yeah.
And so it's like somewhat local, but it's also like kind of a big city.
Yeah. Originally, I feel like I've told this to people before that Tacoma was meant to be the major city in Washington, hence its location and how it's built, I suppose. And
yeah,
the
it's
freeways.
south of Seattle, but it's also very large.
Yeah, if you look at Seattle, it is not a city meant to be as large as it is.
Yeah.
So Tacoma was supposed to be that main hub, and
yeah,
I don't know how Seattle turned into it, but yeah. So it's a large city.
Right. So I logged on to Instagram the other day to do like my typical, adding people and scoping stuff out and just putting stories on there. And Tacoma police had updated with a case that is actually very old from 1986 that has recently, I think it says 2018 is when they found the person that did it, but as of recent, which is why they posted,
Okay.
it just got, I don't know how you say, like maybe like finalized.
Okay.
Or like, you know how like the trial takes so long?
Right.
So
yeah,
now
yeah.
it's like where he was sentenced. So that's why it was updating. So Michelle Welch, she was 12 years old in 1986 when she was found raped and murdered in Tacoma.
Okay.
Gary Hartman, 70 years old, was found guilty on Tuesday, like this Tuesday. So when we're
Wow.
filming on Thursday, 2 days ago, of first-degree murder during a bench trial that lasted less than 2 hours. By the way, you guys, right now I'm reading from thenewstribune.com.
Ooh, TNT.
Yeah, I didn't have enough time today to like sit down and make my own script, so I'm just going to read from them. But it says Pierce County Superior Judge Stanley sentenced Hartman to 26 years and 6 months in prison. So most likely
Yeah.
he'll die in prison, right?
Wow. So 34 years later, they're finally.
And all thanks to genealogy.
Oh.
Yep.
Interesting.
So this was back in 2018 when they were able to, thank you guys, all the people doing 23andMe and all these family trees. I fucking love it. I don't really care what you say about like putting your DNA out there. Like you're not that special. It's not like a Big Brother's like gonna fucking hunt you down. Like you're really not that cool. But honestly, like there are so many things happening because of this. We already know this, right? The whole like
no, there's been a lot
Golden
of
State Killer. Like we know this is like a real thing. So
interesting.
Yeah, another old piece of shit was finally fucking caught. So I fucking love it. Yeah, and so they tracked it down through, like I said, genealogy, and they were able to find somebody related to his brother, and then they put surveillance on the brother and him. In 2018, they followed him, and after he was arrested, it was stated that like he felt like somebody was following him, and he had told a coworker, I did something really bad 30 years ago, and I feel like people are going to find out.
And here it is.
Also, like, who says that, right?
Good. Fuck that dude. Fuck that dude.
So they tracked him down, and they surveyed him and his brother, and they used DNA from a cup that they left at a restaurant, and then I think for this guy, Hartman, they tracked it down to a brown paper napkin and got DNA off of it.
Good.
And linked him to it.
Well, it's cool to see that 34 years later, they're finally getting their piece.
I know. And I mean, I watched the videos and I don't want to like, listen, I hate everyone, okay?
Yeah.
Like even not murderers. I hate a lot of people. But this guy in the video, he really looked like he was sorry for it. Like he was bawling in this old dude and he came in a walker. He just obviously needed a walker, you know, like he's just old as hell anyway.
Yeah, in some situations you do eventually learn how to feel sorry
like
for
even
your
they
mistakes.
zoomed in on him and he was just like, where's the quote? His quote is saying, I am so sorry. God knows I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And that doesn't help. I'm just so sorry. And this happened at a Tacoma park, like I said, back in 1986. Michelle was the oldest of 3 girls, and she went home to grab lunches for the other 2 sisters because they were all at a park.
Well, spoiler alert for anybody that was hoping we were going to do this case.
No, there's really not that much on it anyway.
Okay, well.
It wouldn't be enough. Unfortunately,
Well, there's a mini true crime banter case right there for you guys.
Yeah. But anyway, I guess she just ran home to get lunches. Something bad happened to her. Her sisters had gone to the bathroom and came out and found her bike at the park and were like, wait, wasn't she supposed to go home? And then they didn't find her. Later that night, they found her body. So she was assaulted and murdered.
And now he's caught and facing the rest of his life.
And watching this video, he's just like sobbing, and even his lawyer had to cover his face. Like even his lawyer was like, "I can't even show my face. I'm so sad
Is
right
that
now."
a video that you might be able to link to then in our?
Yeah,
Instagram?
I can put it in there. Yeah.
Okay, well then there you go, guys. Go to whenever you're listening to this. Hopefully it's up there.
Yeah.
I don't know when this video or this.
I don't know either.
Check it out. Look for the old dude crying.
Yeah.
Typical.
I'm sure you'll see it.
And then speaking of Instagram, you wanted to do a couple shout outs.
Our last case that we did, right? The Sasha Samsonine, the one that I covered.
Yes.
She
Oh, you're okay. I know. Everyone, why don't you just like throw the laptop like away from you?
I'm not going to throw a laptop. Anyway.
Like a frisbee.
Okay. Anyway. This last one, Sasha Samsonine, that we did, this one got a lot of likes. Like, I know we're
on the actual post. Yeah. No, for sure. I think the most, especially within like the first, I think in the first week, this video or an episode had the most listens.
Yeah.
more than
and I don't know if it's just because interesting case, right? Yeah. But this one we got like a lot of comments on it too. So we also got a lot of messages, but because those were privately sent, I don't want to like tell. You know what I mean, right? I'm sure they would be fine with it, but just a lot of like.
If you guys don't know too, if you do message us, we do see it. Like you do a good job of making. I respond to
everyone.
Yeah. So just because we're not reading it out right now, don't
also, no, totally. If you ever get a response at all, it's me. By the way, everyone. Well, you're not talking to Riley, just so you know.
And if you want to talk to me, just like tell her.
Yeah, but probably no one ever does. But anyway, so True. There's when I respond, I'm like, yeah, girl, you go, girl, and then I'm like. Do they know it's Riley when I'm saying this?
It could be me, though. I do text like that.
Okay. So one of the ones we got was from someone called Cinnamon AF.
Oh, spicy.
And it said, I can't wait to check this out! ! Love that. And then Cara Joy said, thanks for the follow. Now I have a new favorite podcast to binge.
I saw that one. I did see that one.
And then my sister commented, but we don't need to go over that.
Do we? No.
She just said, are you guys going to do a live version of the podcast? I want to comment.
So, Joey Toast, right? Joey Toast. Yes. And she's been saying, so when you guys going to shout me out?
Give me a shout out. So you get a shout out. She actually does a really good job of like tagging us and stuff.
No, she's incredible with that. Like she's gotten, I would say at least 5 consistent
and she's got like a lot of friends.
Good job, JoJo.
You and I don't have friends. So the fact that she has a lot of friends. And shares it.
True.
I mean, it's got to be helping a little bit.
Yeah. No, she did say I can't, or when are you guys gonna do a live stream or something? And I'm putting it out there right now. If we build a big enough of a following, and we get our house before our 100th episode, I want to be able to set that up for like a weird live stream.
In like a big empty house, do like a live stream.
No, only because of the
Who cares?
The dynamics of live streaming. It's not as easy as a setup as this. Yeah. There's computers involved.
All that shit.
And so I do want us to be set up somewhat in our house before we do so.
You know all that stuff.
Yeah.
But
so if we do, build enough, I'm going to say if we can get to like, I don't know, 5,000 listeners by our 100th
almost at
episode,
1,600.
We will start live streaming.
Yeah.
Which is actually something I told Joey before I even started this podcast. I was like, you know what? There's a market out there.
There is, yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, so then the next one
we
have
got?
Sweet_meats.
Ooh.
And
I saw this one too. I did see this one.
They said, just subscribed on podcasts. And then the next one is Hoodlum Automotive. And they just said, just followed you on Apple. So this is also a good reminder that we are on Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. Yeah.
Yes. And if you guys prefer, I mean, I don't know how you might be listening to this. If you prefer like Google Podcasts, I haven't looked into getting us up on that yet. But if that is something that you would prefer us to, or I guess prefer to listen to us on, then send us a message. Let us know. As Christian is slamming her hand in the microphone because she's got to get her drink on.
Shut up. Okay, I'm ready. Let's do this.
No more shout-outs?
No, that's it. At least for now.
All right. Well, then... I
just want to get into it,
Shout out to you and all of you listeners for commenting.
Yeah.
And messaging.
Thanks so much,
again,
guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Okay, well, I'm excited for this one. I hope you know that.
Me too. You know how much I love to be the listener.
True, because you get to do what you've already been doing. Just drink and listen.
And enjoying.
Well, this is a story about a 20-year-old Jay Cook and, as I said earlier, his 18-year-old girlfriend, Tanya van Kylenborg. The story begins really similar. I almost thought you were talking about this case when you talked about in the bit of banter.
Oh.
It is November 18th of 1987, though.
Okay,
so
close.
I was like, whoa, are you bringing up my case?
The 80s were crazy.
Yeah, and this begins on the island of Victoria, BC, so British Columbia, Canada.
Okay.
Jay's father, he worked in the residential HVAC business, something I'm very familiar with, and was in need of some parts for a furnace that he was repairing. Victoria, for those of you who don't know, it's like I think it's the most southwestern point of Canada, or at least like the biggest city in southwest Canada or western Canada. Mm-hmm. And you and I, if you're looking on a map, we go to the San Juan Island on occasion, or Friday Harbor.
Yeah.
It's more south than those islands.
Oh,
Yeah.
weird.
So
okay.
looking on a map, it's actually, I have it written down here. It is 12 miles away from San Juan Island,
Okay.
which is weird to think because it's like we've got so much space
Yeah.
between Canada and where we're at there.
Right.
Yeah, so it is very much so in the Washington realm
Okay.
of the geography. So although it is Canadian land, Victoria is more southern on the map than a place like Bellingham, Washington, which a lot of people weirdly have heard
Yeah.
of.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm giving you and I guess the listeners a quick geography lesson is because the nearest place that had these furnace parts that Jay's dad needed was Seattle.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
super far though for them.
You think so? Yeah. But again, looking on the map, the distance from Victoria to Seattle is nearly the same distance as Victoria to Vancouver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's kind
Weird.
of right in the middle
I'm
there.
not familiar with Canada. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, you're gonna have to.
I think I was like 5 when I was there last time, and I remember I ate mushrooms and I hated them so much, and I
And
still hate them.
And that was the beginning of your mushroom hatred.
Yep.
Well, yeah. So Jay, being the adventurous person that he was, again back in the late '80s, and just out having fun, 20
Yeah.
years old, he volunteered that he would make the trip down to Seattle and get those parts for his dad, and then return the next day. Well, Tanya, being just as young and as outgoing as Jay, she thought it would be a fun little overnight trip as well that the two could spend together. So she opted to join Jay.
Okay.
The original plan was for Jay and Tanya to take the ferry from Victoria to Port Angeles, which is a town in Washington.
I love that place, yeah.
Yeah, you and I went there, and I was telling you, I was like, that's Canada right there, I'm pretty sure. You're like, that doesn't seem right. I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure it is.
Well, now I know.
And then once they were in Port Angeles, they were going to drive down to Bremerton, which is another name we know
I
of.
used to live there.
Ooh.
Just saying.
And then they would take a second ferry from Bremerton to Seattle.
Okay.
And then once in Seattle, Jay and Tanya, they would sleep overnight in their dad's. It was a copper-colored work van. I'll send you a picture of it so you can post it. It's a very obvious-looking van.
It's like very 80s.
Yes,
okay.
very much
Love
so.
that.
And then after sleeping in the work van, they would wake up the next morning, get the parts that his dad needed, and then make their trip back home.
Right.
Simple enough. But as you and I know, though, the simplest of things don't always go as planned.
Right.
The next day, so November 19th, Jay and Tanya never returned home. So John, Tanya's brother, he described their family dynamic. Again, this is back in the late 80s, explaining that although texting and cell phones, they didn't exist at this time, or at least, weren't a thing. Cell phones really weren't. Tanya, she always made sure that she called home and kept her family up to date with what was going on. So very responsible, very communicative,
Right.
making sure here's what's going on.
I think back then you had to be too, because you didn't know that you were technology wasn't a thing back then.
Yeah.
Obviously, you just said that, but I mean, you had to be on top of it because there was no other option.
Yeah.
You had to
think about it. If you
think
just needed
about-
a ride.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You had to think about I hope where I'm going they have a phone.
Yep.
So I can let my mom know I made it okay.
You almost got to plan
Yeah.
ahead to check in.
Exactly.
Versus just
Mhm.
checking in when you can.
Yep.
So yeah, Tanya, she always made sure that she was doing a good job of checking in. And she was so consistent in doing so that at this point, when Jay and Tanya hadn't returned home yet, Tanya's father said there's no reason to wait any longer, and reported the couple as missing up in Canada.
Was he able to? Am I able to ask
Yeah.
you that? Is this too early? Just because
Yeah.
we hear so many times
Where
people
it's like,
tell them
especially
they
when
have
they're
to
adults.
wait.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah. So they took it. From what I researched, the police force, or the Royal Mounted,
Mm-hmm. The RCMP.
yes,
Yeah.
Royal Canadian Mounted Police, they did take it seriously.
Okay.
And and Jay's family followed suit and also called the Canadian police and reported them missing as well.
I feel like the Canadians are way better at that stuff.
Yeah,
They're
they're
just
like,
more
hey,
like-
we actually care about our people, eh?
I feel like seriously, like once every 100 cases I hear about Canada, they don't take it as serious as they should. But other than
Right.
that, they're
It's like
really
they're on
good.
top
They're
of their
on
shit.
top of it. Yeah.
I agree. Seattle police, they were then notified as well of the missing couple. And, but the thing is, they weren't really able to do too much, though. They basically said, if anything comes up, we'll let you know. Like, they can, I know, kind of exactly what we were just talking about. Canadian police are like, hey, let's get on top of this, hey?
Like, what's the worst? What's the worst that could happen? You find out they're not missing, and then everything's fine. Like,
Right.
I always think, like, what are you guys doing there? Like,
Yeah.
anytime you're like, no, we're not gonna go investigate. What are you? Are you
Yeah,
guys
you're
playing
like,
Uno?
"That's
What's
your
happening?
job."
Yeah. What are you doing?
So, the family and friends of both Tanya and Jay, they were doing everything they could to figure out where they could have gone. They were asking everyone that they could if they ever heard of, the couple discussing maybe running off or eloping together or something
Okay.
that made sense. Because if you put it into that perspective real quick, you're like, okay, this would be like the prime opportunity.
Well, yeah,
Hey,
they're like
Dad,
racking their brains. I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll take your van and we'll just go down to Seattle real quick, and then boom, they're gone.
Right.
Unfortunately, though, nothing was popping up.
Mm-hmm.
Tanya's brother said that in the week following their disappearance, family members made multiple trips down to the Seattle area to hang missing person signs and basically ask local business if they saw or recognized either of the two, or if they'd seen the family's, like I said, copper-colored work van
Yeah.
anywhere. So a very, very obvious work van, at least in my head.
Very distinguishable. Yeah.
Yes. It was on one of those trips down south, though, that John explains his dad stopped to use, again, a telephone,
Yeah.
to call home and update Tanya's mom and basically tell her where they're at, what their plans are, and when they plan on being home.
Mm-hmm.
It was during that phone call that Tanya's mom notified her dad that she received a phone call earlier that day, and it was a phone call from the Skagit County Sheriff's Office telling her that there was a body found in a ditch about 80 miles north of Seattle, and they suspect that it could be Tanya,
Okay.
which is interesting because 80 miles north of Seattle, if, again, looking on a map where Victoria is, it wouldn't make sense to drive this direction to get home. It would be
Okay.
take the ferries back, because otherwise you're probably looking at like a 6 or 7 hour drive up and around and then back down.
But maybe they just wanted to spend that extra time together.
Maybe.
Maybe they were just like, let's not like rush back home.
Yeah.
I mean,
It could be.
They're a young couple,
I can tell you
They
it's
have a van, wink, wink. You know what I mean?
right,
like I could
yeah,
totally
trying to
see
spend
them.
as much time
right.
away from the
Yeah.
family. Okay.
I could totally see that.
Well, to spoil your ideas, that was not
Okay,
the
wow.
situation.
Okay, great.
So, north they drove, both Tanya's father and brother, in silence with the idea in mind that there's a good chance they might be on their way to identify a dead body
Oh my
as their
God.
daughter and sister. Just over an hour later, they arrived to Skagit County, and sure enough, it's Tanya.
Fuck.
Tanya.
Yeah.
Investigators say that her body was found in a ditch, no pants or underwear on. She was shot in the head with
my
a
God.
.380 caliber gun.
And there's no sign of her boyfriend.
No sign yet. So near Tanya's body, there were white wire ties or zip ties.
Yeah.
And based on the autopsy, they confirmed that prior to being shot, she was indeed
Restrained,
raped.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
restrained and raped.
Right. Fuck.
So Tanya's now been found, but where's Jay and where's the family work van?
Right.
Kind of, I think, what everyone's wondering right now.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't take long, luckily, for those questions to be answered. The first being about the van. It was the very next day after Tanya's body was found that a local bartender up in Bellingham, she stepped out to take a break from work, and she noticed that there was a wallet that was tossed away in like the dirt under a porch. I guess it's like a porch or a break area. You just walk out, maybe like a
okay.
dock, I suppose. She picked up the wallet, and inside it is none other than Tanya Van Kylenborg's ID card.
Oh, I thought maybe it was going to be the boyfriend's. Okay.
No, it's Tanya.
Okay.
So, furthermore, in the same pile of dirt that the wallet was found, there was more zip ties, disposable gloves, and some more ammunition that matched the same bullet that was found in Tanya.
Okay, wait, sorry, really quick. How far away was she found from where this stuff was found?
This is about another 15, 20 miles.
Oh, okay.
Again,
Okay.
and 15 to 20 miles heading north back to Canada
Okay.
on I-5.
Okay.
So we're familiar with it. You're kind of thinking like the Mount Vernon kind of area.
Okay.
And then you start getting up into closer to
Right.
Bellingham.
Okay.
So not too far of a drive.
Okay.
Note that I have written down here is that all of this was found less than 20 miles from where
Well, there you go.
Tanya's body was found. And all of it found outside of a tavern located right next to what, though? A Greyhound bus station.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Okay.
So things are starting to heat up. Pieces are slowly getting put together. Officers are on the scene at this tavern, and they're collecting as much evidence as they can with, I guess, what they found there.
I wonder what's going on in police's head right now because it kind of almost looks like the boyfriend did it.
Right.
It looks like it.
Yeah, and so one of the documentaries, and I want to say it was like a Canadian documentary on this one, they were notifying Jay's family, like, hey, we're still looking, figuring out where he's at. Understand, though, that he might be a suspect in this situation.
Well, you have to be treated as one until there's proof otherwise.
Yeah, but you
because
you
that's
gotta
who
kind
she
of
was last seen with.
exactly. But you want to prep the family for that,
Yeah.
just in case.
Which most
Not
people
like-
don't. So good job.
Yeah, and so they're on scene at this tavern collecting as much evidence as possible. When one of the officers walks around the corner, and what do they see?
A van.
Yes,
I
bingo.
got it. Ding,
Parked
ding, ding.
with Canadian license plates,
Okay.
and hopefully a whole lot of answers as well.
Yeah.
In the van, officers find Tanya's pants, even more evidence, including zip ties and gloves, but still no Jay Cook.
Yeah.
The question still remains, where is Jay and what does he know about what happened to Tanya?
Right.
So one of the things that I wasn't sure I wanted to bring up during this episode because I wasn't sure it would be worth the time, but I think I will because it's come to mind right now, is that officers thought that the suspect, Jay at this point, was taunting them in a way by leaving these like clues or disposable gloves, basically saying, hey, I wore gloves, you're never going to catch me. Because again, this is back in the late 80s, and even one of the officers that worked this case said, back then, the only real way to convict somebody was if you had a fingerprint, and if there's gloves.
And even that's been proven to be like kind of
Yeah,
iffy sometimes.
right, and
you know?
especially if you're the boyfriend, of course there's going to be fingerprints.
I think back then too, one of the only really quote unquote tools they had was blood typing.
Right.
A lot of times they could just
blood type,
identify
but I
a
mean-
type of blood. Exactly.
you
and
can't-
unless you were the rarest in the world, then it really didn't do much.
Yeah, so they thought that there was some sort of weird taunting going on with all this evidence that they were just basically nonchalantly flaunting in front of police.
Okay.
The very next day, Snohomish County officers received a phone call. So this is 2 days now after they found Tanya's body. The next day they found the van. And then the day after that, they get a phone call. Now, for people who don't know the area, again, that we're talking about, Snohomish County is about 70 miles southeast of where Tanya's body was found.
I was gonna say when you said that,
So
I was like,
nowhere
that's not
near.
close.
Yeah, nowhere near.
That's closer to us.
Exactly. Much closer to us. It was actually in Monroe.
Oh,
so
okay.
not far at all.
Yeah.
Nearly 100 miles away from Bellingham where the van was found. And the phone call, let me find out what exactly I'm trying to tell you here. On this phone call, Snohomish County officers are being told that, sadly, there's another body that's been found.
Okay.
This time it's near something that they call the High Bridge
Okay.
over in that area. I've never heard of it,
Okay.
but it's, I guess, a taller bridge in the
Well,
area.
Monroe's a small town. I'm sure they have, like, nicknames for everything.
Yeah. And yes, this is the body of Jay Cook.
Okay.
Now, at first glance, it sounds like Jay Cook may have jumped off the High Bridge, possibly attempting to end his own life in an effort to escape what he might have done to Tanya. Upon further inspection, though, it's clear that this was not the case and something much darker was going on.
I'm sure the police were like, fuck. You know what I mean? Like, they were
Yeah,
thinking this was like a
first.
straightforward, let's just find the boyfriend, he did it. And then now you're like, now there's another person we have to find that killed 2 people?
Yeah, because originally, when you're looking at Jay Cook's body, where this body was reported to be found, it was partially covered by what's described as a blue blanket, I want to say.
Okay.
Only his legs were exposed.
Okay.
So when officers removed the blanket and revealed the upper half of his body, they found that Jay was badly beaten with some sort of rock or blunt object.
God. Okay.
Yeah, he had blood and bruises all over his head. They found a ligature made of twine and a dog collar that was still wrapped around his neck. And stuffed in his mouth was not just a rag, but a box of cigarettes as well.
What the fuck?
Yeah,
I've never heard of anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like almost like you're trying to show somebody up, like, oh yeah, you think all I'm gonna do is just like gag you with some towel? Oh, fuck you, here's your cigarettes too.
Right, also too, I guess it like, was he found floating in the water, or was he like up on the...
No, this is just below the bridge in like a bush kind of.
Oh, okay. I'm just wondering, like, was this something that was placed in his mouth after he died?
So,
you know what I mean?
Well, the medical examiner, they determined that Jay was alive at the time of his beating, obviously based on bruising and
right.
bleeding.
They can tell all that stuff.
But he eventually succumbed to asphyxiation due to both the ligature and the towel, or I guess rag, and cigarettes were pushed so far into his mouth that his tongue was pressed up against the back of his throat.
I don't know what it is about that image. It's like already just having something like malleable, like a rag, right, that can kind of conform and like kind of get stuffed in there, but something square and hard is just really hitting me weird. Like something like that in your mouth and throat, it just doesn't.
Not meant to be there.
Yeah. Well, obviously, right?
I mean,
none of it is, but
you're being forced. It's being forced into your mouth at that point. I feel
I've never heard of that. Oh my God.
Well,
okay.
I'm glad to bring this to your first experience. Yeah, and to make things worse, based on hemorrhaging around his neck and eyes, it was obvious that at least for some bit of time, Jay suffered as he continued to fight for every last breath.
Oh, okay.
So investigators at this point, they're now stumped. Their next steps were to try and trace the couple's movements and figure out who or what kind of person would have done this to them. Based on a ferry ticket that they purchased that was found in the back of the abandoned van, they do know that the couple did at least make it to Seattle. So they had a ferry ticket from Bremerton to Seattle.
Okay.
At this point, based on what I guess Jay's dad had conversations with Jay and them, they believe that the couple likely stopped off somewhere that they thought was a safe place to park for the night before they had to wake up and get the parts again for his dad. And it was at this spot that they chose to park that investigators believe someone came across them. Someone with bad intentions. And I say bad intentions because the evidence shows that it's someone who's either done this before or is ready to do it. Almost like it's premeditated, but not in a sense of they want to do it to a specific person. They just want to be ready for when somebody vulnerable comes up.
Okay,
Based on the gloves, the zip ties, the gun, it was not like maybe a happenstance. These people look vulnerable, or I can take these people.
Right.
And then along with raping of Tanya. They believe that the person's intention was, hey, buddy, I like your girl.
Yeah.
And then Jay got in the way.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened to Jay.
I've heard some other cases like that. Really quick, just because I feel like I'm taking in all these details. Where was she found again?
She was found in Skagit County, so about 70 miles north of Seattle.
So where he was found is closer to us.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to figure out how they dropped him off first? Like they dumped him
right,
first?
Right, that could very well. That's kind of what they're saying, is that he got in the way, so he was the one, he had to get out of the way.
Okay, so okay. I mean, I guess I'm just trying to think like where they were dumped in what order. So he was dumped probably first because it's closer to Seattle after they got off the ferry. And then they head up. And where was she dumped again?
Skagit. So you can...
So like Mount Vernon-ish? Is that what you were saying?
Exactly.
Okay. And then the van was Bellingham.
Yep.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah,
okay,
so it's almost like it went from Seattle to Monroe to Vernon.
I thought the van was in the middle, so I was just thinking how they did that. Okay.
Nope.
Okay,
the van
that makes
was ditched
sense.
at the very top next to the Greyhound bus station.
Damn. Not a good sign, obviously, because who knows where that person is.
Exactly. Yeah. And unfortunately, there was zero evidence that authorities were able to track down that could really help point them in any direction of a possible suspect.
Yeah, especially back then.
And so I put down here as a quick note, I'm thinking all this happened in like a 1 week period from November 18th. Within 4 days, the bodies were found. And then there's nothing. There's no evidence, no leads, no, oh, yeah, I think I saw the van here, or I think I saw this guy walk up to these people at one point. There's nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
That is until December comes around, and so does a letter.
Okay.
So over the next few months, the families of Jay Cook and Tanya Van Kylenborg, they started receiving threatening letters from an anonymous person. These letters, they were postmarked from all over the U.S. Some of them sent from Seattle, some from San Diego, even a few from New York.
Okay, so you have to tell me what they say.
All right, so how should I say that? I should say that the handwriting and the content or the nature of the letters were consistent. So it was the same person writing all of these. There was something. One of the lines that was like appeared in every letter was like, "God bless the Holy Jesus" or something like that. Some weird, something weird. And so the first letter, and I'll read you the first part of the first letter, and it was dated December 3rd, 1987, so my birthday.
Oh, gosh.
Not my actual birthday.
No, right.
But,
Anyway.
And I'm only going to read this part because you can assume that the rest of the letters were very much on par.
Okay.
And this begins, "Dear Mr. Cook." So this letter was to Jay's dad.
Mm-hmm.
"As someone who instinctively hates all Canadians, I couldn't pass up the opportunity to kill Jay and Tanya." And so all Jay and Tanya were in all caps, but this is handwriting in letters, and then exclamation point.
Okay.
"Furthermore, I'll do it again if another opportunity presents itself." Again was in all caps.
Okay.
"And you ain't never going to catch me."
Okay.
So it's almost like this guy is taunting the family. Obviously, if you're writing letters,
right.
And he's basically saying, "Hey, yeah, you thought you could do something, but you can't. Like, too late, too bad."
I almost
so sad.
wish, and this is just after watching stuff like Mindhunter and stuff where it gets really psychological, but like, I almost wish I knew what the whole letter said and all the other ones, because sometimes they'll like try to talk different in parts of it.
Yeah.
To try to throw them off and make it sound like they're like illiterate almost. Like an idiot.
No, I was surprised. So the surprising thing I did see, and we'll post a couple of the letters, or at least a picture of the first letter that I have, is that it seemed like a actual person just writing this letter.
Okay.
And a crazy person, because they're obviously, a piece of shit.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like you're talking about. It didn't sound like somebody that is illiterate.
Because sometimes when these people try to throw off police or investigators, they will try to do things
doesn't coincide with how they actually are.
Yes, to be like, well, somebody else would talk like this.
Yeah, it
not
couldn't
me.
be this guy.
Yeah, it couldn't be someone like me.
This guy's too smart, and this guy doesn't know how to
right.
spell. I mean, even
but
the
usually,
Zodiac.
No, that's what I was gonna say. This
Yeah.
is very Zodiac-ish, the whole taunting and letters and
Yeah.
everything. But you know, they're not smart enough to be consistent about it, so they'll slip up where they'll spell things wrong, like your. They'll be like, they'll spell it you are, but then they'll spell things like really complicated words perfectly. Like it doesn't match up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, moving forward, these letters, they started arriving at the family households always around some sort of holiday. So Christmas, Mother's Day, Easter, and they all had weird messages just like that same, like, you'll never catch me type of
Okay,
thing.
chill, bro. I'm just trying to enjoy Easter.
Instinctively hates all Canadians. That was...
I know.
one-
I don't think
was
I've
like,
ever
that's
heard
so
of that
weird.
before.
So unfortunately, though, these letters, they never led to anything. Investigators, they kept them in case the fingerprints or the DNA could be of, some significance in the future. But because of where the technology was back in 1987, there just wasn't much that they could go off of. And that, sadly, is where, and gosh, I kind of feel like I ended this weird, the murders of Jay Cook and Tanya and Kylenborg went cold.
So it's unsolved?
So over the next couple decades,
Fuck you. Okay.
This case, and one of the, actually I watched a couple pieces. It was featured multiple times on shows like Unsolved Mysteries and America's Most Wanted.
Okay.
As technology advanced, the evidence and DNA collected from crime scenes was, gradually updated or uploaded into CODIS, which is the like FBI National Offender Database.
Yep.
But unfortunately, nothing popped up in that either.
Yeah.
So for, 23 years, they had these letters, DNA evidence, but nothing was ever popping up.
Okay.
Until in 2010,
Oh, hell yeah.
these threatening letters written to the families of Jay and Tanya, they were featured on a local episode of Washington's Most Wanted.
Okay.
And you'll see in the picture or the letters that we post.
Yeah.
The handwriting is very distinctive.
Okay.
So a Canadian viewer of that episode that these letters were featured on in 2010 immediately recognized the handwriting of the letters.
Weird. I feel like you don't hear that often. Just
right,
'cause,
you
like,
would think it'd be something else that would be like, wait a minute.
How often do you like soak in people's handwriting?
Right?
You know?
Well, that you'll see in the pictures. They're very, very distinctive.
Okay, I'm ready.
So that Canadian contacted the police, and after some old-fashioned boots-on-the-ground investigating, Snohomish police were able to track down this man, who ended up being a 70-year-old transient Canadian with mental issues.
Okay.
So basically,
I figured we probably already knew about the mental part.
Yes, a homeless Canadian dude that was. They said he roamed back and forth between Canada or I guess Canadian homeless shelters and then homeless shelters here in Washington.
Okay.
Upon interrogation, this man admitted that yes, he was the one that wrote the letters.
Okay, but also if he has mental issues, that's tough. Interrogating somebody that has mental issues.
Right.
Like, that's a tricky situation.
So he describes that he wrote them because he was angry how he was being treated by his fellow Canadians. And when he saw the reports of the murders on TV and on the news, he saw the perfect opportunity to feel like he was getting back at them.
Okay. So, right. So in all of these letters, he never once said anything about, like, any information that was very, like, pertinent to the case. Like, where you're like,
it was mainly just
general weird
these
shit.
people are dead and I got away with it.
Okay.
Yeah. So
This is
after
just-
further investigation along with DNA testing, because they do have the DNA, officers were disappointed to admit that he wasn't their guy.
Yeah, what a waste of time.
Yes, he wrote the letters that harassed the families, but he wasn't the one who killed them. And at this point, it was past the statute of limitations to face any charges for the harassment. So,
Right. I was just going to say, because I don't think there's a statute of limitations for murder.
No.
So you meant for harassment.
For
Okay.
harassment against the families.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so the case went cold.
Until, don't look at me like
No.
that. There better not be.
No, I mean, the case went cold. Snohomish detective Jim Scharf, he was determined, though, to find the person responsible for the deaths of Jay and Tanya.
Okay.
Why are you looking at me so
I'm
weird?
just waiting to see what you're going to say. I'm trying to read you.
And years continued to go by with no leads. Stop looking at me like that. You are getting, I don't know.
I'm just waiting. I'm like on the not actual edge of my seat. If you can see me, I'm very relaxed.
Yeah, you're very
but
calm, cool, and collected.
but emotionally, I'm on the edge of my seat. Like,
Well,
keep
this
going.
is a great time
Let's
for
go.
a sponsor.
No, stop. Keep going.
Okay.
Stop.
So, like I was saying,
Mm-hmm.
years continued to go by with no further leads or information leading to any arrest. Fast forward to April 25th, 2018, which is weird because, again, you were...
The case I was talking about?
Yeah, the one of the bit of banter. I was
2018.
like, is she talking about this case for a second?
That's so weird.
86, 2018.
Yep.
And so on April 25th of 2018, and this is where I talked to you in the beginning. I said, this is weird that we don't know about this case.
Okay, here we go.
One of the most groundbreaking arrests in modern history occurred when Joseph James D'Angelo was arrested in California, the Golden State Killer,
Yes.
after familial DNA
Yeah.
led to his conviction.
Okay.
One of the most prolific serial killers in the last century.
Like all time. Yeah.
And although his arrest has nothing to do with this case,
Oh, okay.
I know you
I
thought,
thought you were going to say it was him. I was like, what the fuck?
Right?
Okay.
No, it didn't have anything to do with it. But the day that he was arrested, it sparked an idea.
Okay.
And Detective Scharf, on that same day, said, I need to get on this.
Oh.
So 2 days later, Detective Jim Scharf, he gets in touch with C.C. Moore, a genetic genealogist, and she uploads the DNA from the evidence into her database. The very next day, she finds a DNA match, and within 2 hours, she was able to construct a family tree and narrowed in on the one person that she thinks could be the culprit.
This is amazing. I just like am so it happened so fast.
Yeah, within a day of
That's
thinking, you know what,
amazing.
let's try this
I
route.
love this.
And she narrowed in on someone named William Earl Talbot II.
Okay.
And again, this is a situation where DNA, I guess, matches with familial DNA isn't
Right.
evidence,
Right.
but it gives police a lead to
Yeah.
where they might.
But that's where all the other stuff, I don't want to like get too far into it, but that's where all the other boot on the ground work comes in, right?
Yeah.
Where you narrow in on like, okay, it's
Well-
related to this specific part of the family tree, but it couldn't be this person because they weren't living in the country at this time.
Yes,
You have to do
exactly.
all the background research.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, police, they spend the next month
Yep.
after getting this name pulled out of a hat, pretty much. They're searching and they track down William, and they follow him for days upon days until they were finally able to get a proper DNA swab from a cup that he had thrown out while working. And that now is where a DNA match does become evidence and give you reason to arrest.
Right.
So they run the DNA against the DNA found at the crime scenes. You know, this is 31 years later now, and it's a perfect match. So on May 17th, 2018, William Earl Talbot II is arrested, and 1 year later, after a 2-week trial, the jury found him guilty of 2 accounts of aggravated murder, being the first person in the world convicted using genetic genealogy.
In the world?
Yeah, and that's where I told you, I
Wait.
said, this is weird
Didn't
because
you just say?
convicted. So the Golden State Killer, it took longer for the trial to get...
Oh, so he would have been.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, he was the first person probably arrested due to it.
Right, but that's what I'm saying.
But
he
we're
would have
talking
been.
2 days later, then this guy's
Yes.
popped up. A month later, he's arrested.
Okay.
And then he's the first
They were
person.
just quicker on
Yes.
that. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So he is...
In the world?
Uh-huh.
Wow. That's
Right.
quite the title. Okay.
And that's where I'm like, this is such a big leap in technology for tracking down the bad guys
Mm-hmm.
that, like, I feel like we would have heard this. I mean,
Yeah.
this is from
No,
around
that's
here, too.
weird.
But I
Yeah.
think because of the Golden State Killer, it was like, overshadowed by all of that, you know. So he is currently incarcerated in the Washington State Penitentiary, serving 2 consecutive life sentences.
How old was he when he was arrested?
50.
So he was around their
yeah.
age?
Yep. I think it was like
when
54 or 56
this.
or something. So I think he's like 56 years old right now. Or 50,
wow,
something like
somewhere
that.
there, right?
Yeah. However, in December of 2021, so just a few months ago, Talbot's attorneys appealed the conviction, and that appeal was granted and overturned the initial ruling. So the reason behind this is that there was clear evidence that at least one of the jurors on the trial was biased.
Okay.
So she said, and they go into a little bit of detail about her and how she even said, I think I'm biased because one, I'm something about like being from a single parent household and that she was a mom and she, you know, is biased towards ruling against the person if it's a crime against a young woman. Like,
this is so okay. Listen, I know they have to overturn it, but these are so pointless because you have DNA. Like,
yeah.
It's so pointless. So you're gonna get a new trial, but
Exactly.
then to just point out that you have irrefutable evidence anyway.
Yep.
Like we could do this
semantic.
all
it's
day,
like,
dude.
Oh, just because one single juror out of she was called juror 40, so I don't know how many jurors there was.
I don't fucking know, but
yeah.
That's bizarre.
So
when you
that's
have
kind of
DNA,
where
what's the
they're at
fucking
right
point
now.
of doing another trial?
I agree, and I spent probably 40 minutes trying to figure out where the hell this case was at present day, because again, that was 3 months ago or 4 months ago.
Right, so they're
was
probably
overturned.
working on all this.
And I know they had up until January to appeal the overruling.
I can't really think of like what other avenue to go down except maybe he was there trying to do like mentally ill at the time of doing it. Like I don't know what else they could plead.
So what they're trying to say is that the DNA found on her was consensual sex between him and her.
Of course they are. And I'm sure he's going to
That's
have a
where they're-
magical
yeah.
story when he gets up there about how they had some weird threesome or something. Like they always have to pull something out of their ass.
Yeah.
They have to.
Yeah,
But
it is.
luckily, these stories never actually sway the jury.
No, and also, you know, I can see. I'm not gonna say I can see because most attorneys and lawyers they're just in it to win it.
Yeah.
You know, make the money and win the case. They don't
Yeah.
really care about the actual details of it. But when you're talking about such like a novel or unprecedented ruling using this new technology, then it's like, well, if we can give anybody any hesitance to be like, well, maybe that DNA thing isn't real. Like 23andMe helped you catch him. Like that doesn't
Good
sound
luck
real,
nowadays.
You know? Yeah, nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Which
already
is-
been proven
I
it
know,
works.
it's like,
Yeah, nice
that
try.
was 4 years ago now.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I guess in that case, I don't know how long they've been attempting to appeal this. So maybe they're just
They're
finally
probably
now
just hoping to
finding-
get a lesser sentence, I'm guessing. They're
Could
not
be.
trying to like prove him not guilty.
Yeah, because in Washington and for aggravated assaults or something like that, it is consecutive sentences. So
Mhm.
it's not like he's serving a life term at the
Right.
same time. It's one and then the
He's
next
probably
one
just
begins.
gonna probably do like an Alford plea. I mean, there's so
Yeah.
much against you. There's no point in fighting this.
But again, I guess opportunity for parole might be what he's.
I don't fucking know.
So yeah, and
Wow.
I was getting really warm and nervous when you started talking about your bit of banter because I was like, genetic genealogy.
I know that was
and
so weird
late 80s
because
and 2018.
people, if you can see us right now, we did not discuss this at
No.
all. Like
No, I was like,
same
will
year,
you stop talking about
genetic
this for a second?"
genealogy,
So I was like, please don't
the
ruin
same
the
year
case
they
for
were
you.
convicted. That's just
Mhm.
really weird.
Yeah,
Please stop talking.
just in general. So yeah,
Wow.
Go William Talbot II. So he is in prison still, I do believe.
Yeah.
But we'll see how things go.
Damn.
I mean, I would, like we just talked about, I would assume that he would be convicted again, but
Yeah.
probably for a lesser sentence if he can swing it.
Yeah. Good fucking luck with that,
Who
dude.
cares?
There's no
Yeah.
fucking way.
Which I don't want to be like you're a piece of shit because if for some reason it wasn't him, and he does get off too.
How could it not be?
I don't know. You know what? Fuck you. You're a piece of shit.
Yeah, how could it
Fuck
not
that
be
guy.
him? That's exactly. If there was any even shred, I'd be like, well, let's, I don't want to do the whole devil's advocate thing, but if there is any shred of doubt, I feel like it should be looked at. You don't have to believe it,
I guess
but at least weigh it for a second, because how many people have been thrown in jail and they've been completely innocent?
And what doesn't help his case is
DNA.
that he is like a delivery driver or like a delivery truck type of guy, and so he knows the roads and he knows the area.
Yeah, I'm sure he knows
he's
back
always on the
roads
move.
and places to dump bodies,
Yep.
and yeah.
Oh, sorry, bud.
Well, go die.
Doesn't look good for you.
Wow. Yeah, I had not heard that one. I'm not faking it, you guys. I really haven't heard that one. I really haven't.
I know. And when I was researching it, because this is one of the names I've got a list of cases I want to cover, and you put together your own list too, and we kind of have like a shared note in the Apple Notes to be like, all right, I'm gonna cover this one.
Right.
Hopefully you don't know it. And this was one where I was just like, oh, that sounds kind of interesting. I was like, huh, like Canadians that came down here and then died.
Yeah, that letter thing was a twist.
Yeah,
you
and
know?
to think that, and I honestly almost forgot about that part as I was like writing up my notes. I was like, wait a minute, there's a whole situation there.
Yeah, wait, there was
like,
a fucking homeless dude involved in this. Yeah.
And I was like, how do I not know about this case?
Yeah.
It was weird.
Well, it sounds like something that would be on Forensic Files. It sounds very like almost cut and dry almost.
And I'm sure after he was convicted, they probably did throw it on like a Dateline
The only
or
thing
something.
that obviously is not Forensic File-ish is that this was genealogy and that wasn't around when Forensic Files was doing their thing.
But
you know?
would think maybe modern day Dateline or Investigators or
that's
ID
true.
Channel or something.
shout
but
out
you
to
watch
Dateline,
every
maybe
single
do that.
episode of
I
that.
have
So
not seen it. Nope.
yeah, well, that is the case of Jay and Tanya.
Wow.
Jay Cook and Tanya Van Cuylenborg.
Wow.
Kylenborg.
Quite the last name. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look
Well,
that up
thanks
later.
for that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now I know one more case that I didn't know, so I'll just add it to my library.
There you go.
Yep.
And now we know that the first person convicted using genetic genealogy was here in Washington.
Yeah, and not the Golden State Killer.
Not the Golden State
Nope.
Killer. And that
No.
was such a prolific
Yep.
moment, I feel like.
Also, too, if it ended up being him, what is it, Joseph D'Angelo, right?
Uh-huh.
If it ended up being him, wouldn't that be crazy? The first person ever was a prolific serial killer.
Oh, that would
Wouldn't that be just a
wild.
weird coincidence? Yeah.
They were like, well, we got to find some other dude first before we
But
convict him.
that makes sense, because if you're gonna run anyone's DNA when this genealogy thing becomes a thing,
the dude who's
it's
killed
gonna
the most.
be so that
Yep.
kind of makes sense. But
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
thank
I'm
you.
glad you enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
I hope everybody else listening and watching
Yeah.
on the YouTubes enjoyed it. We look like, what do we say, the fiery pits of hell?
I know, I like it though. It's very
Yeah.
fitting for our personalities. at
We're
least.
both wearing white. Why are you matching me?
I did this
Why?
first.
No.
Yeah, when you
No, because
came
I
back
bought
home.
this shirt the other day thinking
Okay,
that
technically, I guess that's true. Anyway,
Uh,
nobody cares about our fashion choices.
well,
so. Anyway,
someday they will. Anyways, everybody, thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to follow us on the Instagrams at True Crime
Yes.
Banter.
Yep.
Again, any case suggestions, any comments, messages, Christian sees everything.
Also, too, you know what I just thought about the other day? Because I was talking to my sister. Shout out Joey Toast on Instagram. But she was saying that we should take banter shout outs too. Anything that people want to hear, like, talk about, or like, this is a weird topic people have talked about lately.
Be
or,
like, hey, here's...
yeah.
Or just like any random questions.
Anything at all.
too.
Yeah, if you have questions, I don't know.
Yep, something that
What
you
you
just
have
want our
questions
opinions
about.
on, you know? I don't know.
No problem. I will let you know.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
send those in if you
Send
guys are watching
whatever.
on YouTube and
As
enjoying
long as
what
it's
you
nice,
see.
send it in.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hit that subscribe button on YouTube
Yep.
as well.
Yep.
Again, leave comments there. I kind of take reign on that side of things, and
Yeah.
well, thank God it's not nearly as busy.
Yeah. If you find yourself bored, that's because Riley
Yeah.
responded. to you.
Bingo.
Just
Yeah, well,
kidding.
thanks for joining us. My name is Riley,
And I'm Christian.
and we will talk to you next time.
Bye.
Take care.